Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live at Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared with your hosts, Scott, Shane, and Paris. And tonight we have an exciting episode for you. Make sure you hit like if you're watching. Make sure that you share the word. We're going to talk today about, it's the beginning of a new year, and there's a lot of people that are new to prepping. They're just learning about prepping. So we're going to start from the beginning about where to start. Well, prepping can be overwhelming, to say the least. And so we want to help you know what are the first things you ought to do to make sure that you're ready or getting ready and moving toward in a good direction so that you're not overwhelmed with getting prepared and being prepared in this new preparedness world. Hopefully you'll get a lot out of this episode. And we also want to recommend that you go see our good friends at survivalfrog.com. They have a lot of great gear over there. They have several categories of prepping. They've got food, they've got gear, they've got all kinds of things. So that'll be a great opportunity for you to get over there and check them out. If you go to survivalfrog.com, use Prepper Talk 10 at checkout to get 10% off. Also, go to our website, preppertalkradio.com, and across the top, you'll see resources. You'll see our store. You can get some merch. Go ahead and use any one of those links and support the show. We look forward to a great live chat with everybody. We got a full house tonight. We got a bunch of the regulars in here with us tonight. So we're excited to also hear from their experience, some of the best things that we can do to get started, where to start, and how to prioritize those preps. How you guys feeling tonight?
Excellent. Thanks for asking.
Doing very well, other than this losing my voice. Kind of gives me a richer, deeper, scratchier voice, but
smoky.
And I do not smoke, nor have I been around any smoke lately. We got hit with some nasty flu thing in our house, and everybody had the fever for almost a week. We're coming out of it, but we still have those dry coughs at the end, and I'm like, oh, my voice is going away. But I'm excited to be here. This is my favorite time of the week. As I always let you guys know, it is my highlight, at least one of.
Well, I've had a good week too. First of the year, we've got a couple things. Hopefully, it's, what is it, the 9th today, right? Is today the 9th? No, today's the 8th.
8th, yeah.
We got 12 more days until we have hopefully in the next 12 days, no craziness happens. We'll be able to have our, have the appropriate inauguration and move forward and make the change. So we'll see. By the time this episode goes out, there'll be only a few more days left after that. But anyways, we got a lot of fun things going on in 2025, but we want to make sure that everybody gets prepared and gets ready and knows where to start. I think I'll kick it off then. If I feel like one of the first things to start is to get an idea of, I think the first place to start is with food. Food also, though, I'm really thinking that a grab and go bag, something that if you have a natural disaster, earthquake, a fire, you can grab and you can just go and you're going to be okay. You're going to at least have a couple of things, resources that you can use. So a grab and go bag would kind of be where I would start, and then I would move towards food. What do you guys think?
Well, go ahead, Scott.
Gentlemen first. That's to you.
No. Okay, I'm going to take up some time here because I got a lot of thoughts on this. So feel free to cut me off anytime. So I think it's a great idea, Paris, to start out with a little go bag, put some EDC stuff together, right? Put some camping stuff maybe you already have together, and start kind of playing around with a kit, right? Because I've revised my go bag, dozens of times. It's always changing, always updating it. But obviously, like one of the comments here, you have to have a desire. You got to make the decision. I like the idea of jumping in, right? We talk about budgeting, and I have to budget every single month. Certain amounts I'm going to put towards preparedness, food storage, something specific. But I think at the beginning, it probably, for me, I'm of course speaking for myself, it's important to be able to take some kind of a leap, jump in at least a little bit. So have some kind of dollar amount that you can say, I've got $1,000, I'm going to jump in, or maybe, if you can do more, great. You can get a lot more accomplished, especially, of course, I'm assuming that, we're talking about someone who's just getting started, who really has nothing other than maybe some camping gear, something, simple. you got a small pantry, you don't have a lot to that, you've got a long ways to go. And so I think jumping in is important. So if you don't have a budget, go sell the boat, go sell some unused, unnecessary things, right? So you can get some cash to then get your 90-day pantry, like say in Paris, get your food, get your water, and then put your go bag together, get some EDC going together, get yourself a nice knife. I talk about this way too much. Having a good knife on you all the time will change your life, especially if you've never carried before.
And apparently, it's not a Kershaw. Apparently,
well,
can't be.
If you got a budget, start with a Kershaw, man, and then
he just called me poor. Everybody,
everybody's got poor. A budget. You take it how you want to, there, Scott. Get offended if you want. But
I would call balderdash on both of you guys, dude. You can't just jump in and prepping and hope to. It's a sink scenario. If you jump in without putting some thought in, you're going to drown. And I say this with all the love and respect and also a little snarkiness. Like, you've got to know why you're doing it and what you need to do. Because if you like, oh, I need to prep. I don't know what to do, but I got to prep. I'm going to jump in, and you hop on one of those survival boards online or jump in Facebook to any group other than Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, you're going to get 1,000 jackwagons giving you 1,000 bad ideas and one person giving you gold.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to look at your situation and say, okay, why am I doing this? Or why am I concerned? And honestly, I think the first thing you need to do is brainstorm what are my biggest fears? So I know what I'm prepping against.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're throwing your pasta against the wall, not even know what you're cooking yet, and you maybe even haven't even gotten the water boiling. You've got to know what you're doing, or why you're doing it, and then what you need to do for that big scenario. And I say pick a big scenario, whatever's the fear-mongering issue that's getting you into prepping. Start with that as this is what we're prepping for. Because I tell you, if it's a big issue, it's going to cover 80% of everything else.
Yeah.
And then look at what you need. What I have, and that's, you've got to do a self-assessment. And none of this is sexy. None of this is like, ooh, I got a new knife. Ooh, I got this cool new generator, guys. Or, oh man, you guys see my new 4-wheel drive overland vehicle that has everything I need. I can just bug out.
Like the zombie
$100,000 out of the bat, or right out of the gate. Like, you've got to do an assessment of yourself to see, well, what do I have and what do I need? And then prioritize based on those needs. Like, I used to be 100%, let's follow the emergency rule of 3 in my prepping mindset and modality. It's like, okay, well, first thing I got to make sure I got shelter. What's my backup shelter to my shelter? What's my backup water to my water? What's my backup food to my food? What's my first aid? And it's like, yeah, that's the best way to problem solve. Right. And prioritize in an issue, but it's not necessarily the best way to prep. And I have to kind of like take it on the chin, because I used to say that and I would die by it. And now I'm like, no, honestly, in most people's situation, I need to get a couple things: food and tools, then water. And I say that because most of us already have a couple of gallons of water in our house that we can drink, a couple extra gallons of stuff that we can use, right? Most of us have bottled water somewhere, but definitely expand those things as quick as you can. And if you have $500, dump it into water storage, food storage, and filters. Water filters.
Like you
said, you have 1,000 or more. I mean, you could. We did a show about this a while ago. Like, if I had $500, like, go back and watch that show, guys, because we kind of give you scenarios of what you can prioritize, and I think we did a really good job on that. Like, but I kind of have to lean with Paris on this one. I guess I'll be a parasite on this side.
What?
Parasite. Get your food first, because most people in the United States have less than a 1-day amount of food in their home.
Well, I also think that you should think about what is the most likely thing to happen in your life.
Yeah.
And that's what you were talking about, Scott, is I think the number one thing to prepare for would be job loss, or some kind of change between jobs, or some kind of emotion, or maybe a health concern where you can't work. The next big one is going to be a natural disaster, as far as I'm concerned. Like right now, the people in California, I don't care how much food storage they have in Malibu, they needed to have something to grab and go. You know what I mean? And to get out of there. So that grab and go bag is kind of why I guess my mind was on those poor people in California. And even in California, that we got not just the fire right now, but the earthquake. And in the what's crazy is on California, we have fire burning to the ground. And then on the East Coast, we have winter storm front, huge things happening over on the winter storm front. So if I was somebody, when I lived in Florida, what is the first thing you do for prepping? Well, you need to have, you can't grab, well, if you don't have a grab and go, you need to have stuff to board up your windows, like, because hurricane, so it depends on where you live too, kind of how you're going to start. And I'm going to lean into what Utah Mike's trying to have me do is really, after you figure out kind of, okay, what's most likely thing to happen to me, then you do need to sit down and, like Shane was mentioning, get a budget together and say, how much money can I really put towards this, and build an emergency fund that can fund not just a savings account, but fund the gear that you need to fund your emergency preparedness. That to me is appropriate emergency fund usage, is getting gear too.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about the survival rules of 3. I think most of us have shelter already covered, right? We have our homes or apartments, we've got a vehicle, and then, and that's obviously the basics. You can add from there tents and so on and so forth, but that's pretty much covered. And then technically it's water and then food and safety and so on and so forth. So, but like you say, Paris, I totally agree. Get your food, fill the pantry, get your 90-day pantry. And I kind of started out saying, hey, jump in. No, but you got to jump in smart, right? You're not going to just jump in if you can't swim, right? You don't jump in the water. And maybe that's a good way to learn, but it's going to be painful and it's going to be scary. Do your research, learn, but then get a chunk and then jump in. That's what I'm saying that way. But it's also, for me, in my perspective, jumping in creates some excitement. It creates some momentum, right? So if I'm just going to say, well, I got $50 a month or $100 a month that I'm going to start adding to my preps, and maybe that means doubling up on your canned goods, buying 2 instead of 1 or 3 instead of 2, whatever. I think it's important to get that momentum going and figure out, come up with a large amount, make a bit of a sacrifice. It's got to be a bit painful. Get going, right? So you're invested in it. Say, hey, I've got a good start. I feel good and I'm moving forward. I've got 2 weeks worth of food now. And man, that gives me some comfort and I'm feeling good and I got some momentum and I'm going to keep going with this. And then, of course, us gearheads, right? We like to get that cool wilderness survival knife, right? And then go out and practice and work with it, right? And I think that's important for me anyway. And it's going to be different for everybody, right? Like Rebecca says, figure out, what you need to adapt to in your particular part of the world and part of the country, and start preparing for that.
You don't even need to have a ton of money. For example, when I wanted to get a nice grab and go bag, and so of course I looked on Amazon and I got a bag and I got a fire starter and I got a knife. I put it all on my wish list, and I tallied it all up and I figured out exactly how much I needed. And then I was like, wait a minute, I got me, my wife, at the time I had 3 or 4 kids. I'm like, holy cow, dude, this is going to be times 5, 6, 7 easily. Right. So I thought, what can I do to kind of get started? And I realized my kids had old backpacks that they used for the last year. So I said, let's use those bags for them for now until I can, swap them out. So it's important to just start with what you have and then have a plan to maybe get more robust. If you can't afford a Shane level, pocket EDC knife, then, maybe you can afford like Paris Clough level, which is
I didn't start here. I didn't start with
mine's.
Knife,
I think
right?
mine's was like $40 at LA Police Gear, which is one of our, and it's served me well. I mean, it's a great EDC. I've never needed anything great. It's an emergency one because it can pop a window out. It can cut Anyway, so the point is that you want to have a couple of things that are multi-tool. And then don't get too far into that, because some things that are too multi-tool, now you're like, they can't do good at anything if there's too many things they're trying to do. So there's a couple of things you can buy that maybe have a couple, 2 or 3 purposes, and then you can move on to the next thing. But look around your house, figure out what you already have that could be used in just for now, and then start to take inventory, create wish lists. And then what I would do is get a wish list and then just cross things off as your budget allows. Just slowly but surely build up your preps. The best time to get prepared for an emergency was last year, but the next best time is right now.
So if you go to our website, preppertalkradio.com/downloads, or sorry, yeah.
Well, you have to go to
preppertalkradio.com/resources. If you go to preppertalkradio.com/resources, that will get you our food storage calculator and emergency inventory tracker. That's like, my wife and I built that because that's what we used to help us get organized. Because for years, I had all this prepping stuff, but I didn't really know exactly what I had. And then as I started my family, I'm like, I need to know what I need for how many people I have. And so this has a calculator in it. You can actually see, okay, I'm prepping for 90 days, put in 90 days. I've got 2 adults and 3 kids. It'll tell you the caloric needs you need. It'll tell you the water amounts you need. And then you can build that up. And there's an inventory tracker that you can actually throw in the food, how many calories per serving, and break it all down. And it'll tell you what you have, how much it'll feed, right? How many days it'll actually help sustain you. And that has given me, honestly, so much peace as we've built that, edited it, and then stuck to it for our family. Like, we treat our food storage like a business. We track our inventory. As we use food, we replenish that food at the next grocery run, right? So we're always eating the oldest stuff first. That way it doesn't expire.
Yeah.
Like, the funny thing is, like, you look at people who go nuts and they're like, a lot of people will come into prepping with more money than common sense, and they'll buy a whole bunch of stuff because someone got them panicked about an upcoming event. Like, remembering back to Y2K, remembering back to a financial collapse in 2008, remembering back to, anything where people are like, we're worried about X. And the people who jump into prepping because of X, who haven't really thought much, they'll spend a ton of money on like food storage, and then X doesn't happen. So then they try to sell it all. Dude, that's the best time to buy, right? If you've got money and someone else is selling their stuff they bought like 2 years ago, it's still got 18 years on it, right? So be thoughtful of, what do I actually really need, and why am I doing this? That'll help you get the right stuff. But that, we've also got other free guides in there, like what you should put in your bug out bags, what you should put in your car readiness kits, disaster planning guide in there. There's a lot of different resources in there over at our website under the resources page.
Because I get a couple questions from new folks who are starting prepping. A couple big questions on food is, should I get freeze dried foods? Should I get a freeze dryer? And should I get these kits that you can buy, the 90-day, 90-day, 6-month kits that you can buy from, like, whatever. We have links, My Patriot Supply, and we believe in, our good buddy,
FoodStorageDepot.com.
Yeah. So I say, yes, get those things after you go through your personal, like, one of the things that I remember, or I realize, is that, and this is true for anybody, like, if you have kids, especially if you have kids, you don't want to have 500 pounds of wheat. Like, that's going to stop them up and they're not going to eat it. It's going to be, Dad, this is gross. Mom, this is gross, So first thing I would do for food is look at what you already eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you buy in a little extra. Every week you go to the grocery store, buy a little extra of whatever you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, until you have a week, until you have a month, until you have about 90 days. Once you have about 90 days worth of food, that's about as long as you want to kind of keep that rotation going. I mean, you could go 120 days, sure, but on some of those things, but you got perishables in there, different things that if you go too much longer than 90 days, it might be a point of diminishing returns, but about 90 days is the sweet spot. And I love when something in the house, like for example, my daughter was, she yells from the shower, "Mom, I ran out of shampoo," whatever. I don't have to go to the store to buy it. I just go to the pantry downstairs. I pull from the stash of shampoo, because we got 90 days of shampoo roughly. in the storage downstairs, and I just bring it up and hand it to my wife. She hands it to the, so it's just a really neat thing to have. It's so comforting to know that, hey, if I run out of something in my upstairs pantry, I got to back up 2 or 3, 4, 5 of them in my downstairs pantry, in my storage, my home pantry, my home storage. It's just nice. And it didn't come all at once. And there's things that even the other day I was thinking, oh my gosh, how did I can't remember what it was, but I was like, how did I run out of that? How did I not have 3 or 4 extras of those? I can't remember what it was, but it was something that I was like, that's it. I'm buying 4 or 5 of those at the store when I go. Oh, my wife needed some cooking oil, some shelf cooking oil. And I was like, well, we have downstairs. She's like, no, we ran out. I'm like, why didn't you put it on the list when you pulled the last one out of the storage? She's like, I forgot. So it's just nice to have that ability to say, look, we don't have to run to the store real quick because we have it in our own store, our home store. Yeah. And that's just always been a really fun thing for me.
Well, and the other reality of that is like, it's not something you build overnight.
Totally.
Right. It's something you build up to. And the reason you want to build up to it is because you'll learn there's certain foods that you'll buy that you're like, oh, we really don't eat this very often. I don't need to stock up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If it's a special meal for a special, oh, it's a birthday, we're gonna do this meal for this birthday. Well, that's not something you want to put in your 90-day rotation because that comes up once a year. But all the stuff you eat frequently, those are the things you want to stock up on. Yeah. Right. Some of you, it's going to entail getting a big freeze dryer. Some of you, it's going to entail, learning how to dehydrate your own foods or smoke your own meats, or it's going to encourage you to start canning. Right. There are ways you can can and preserve your own foods. And honestly, that's going to be the best tasting stuff for the apocalypse, whatever that apocalypse in your life is going to be. Mm-hmm. To have your own stuff that you're used to, that your kids will eat, that you like to eat. It'll help you save yourself from food fatigue because you've got a variety of things that you will eat and normally eat, but it's not the same thing every day. And that's one of the problems with a lot of the freeze-dried foods is like, oh, get this kit of 30 days. Well, it's 30 days of the same 3 meals.
Yeah, repeating
over a week at a time.
Mm-hmm. Here's my take on freeze-dried is I think for me, it's an important part of our plan. So like you, Paris, 90 days on the shelves, on the pantry, rotating and replenishing every time I go to the store. And then 6 months worth of bulk foods, the rice, the wheat, the flour, the sugar, all the basics, because it's very inexpensive. You can get a lot of calories for very little. And that's where our lists on Prepper Talk Radio come in. And then for me, about 3 months worth of freeze-dried. And there is that food fatigue you can get from freeze-dried by eating the same things over and over again. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different brands out there. Each brand has their own flavors. Some are very strong. Some are very mild. Some are high quality. Some are crap.
And some are filled with sodium.
Exactly. Some are way too much sodium. Of course, the best out there is like Peak and Mountain House. I could probably eat those every dinner. They have a lot of different varieties, but they're very expensive. But they're very easy to fix. They take very little water. You only have to heat the water to boiling, so you don't use much energy. I think it's an important part, at least for our family, to have some freeze-dried. So if we need to do something quick and easy, we can do that. If we want to get the wheat grinder out and grind wheat, we've got that as well. And then we've got some normalcy with having a 90-day pantry where we have the same usual foods, where we can start to integrate, make our own bread, and use the bulk grains and such, and then supplement occasionally with a nice Mountain House meal in the evening.
What's
definitely brings some normalcy, some relieve some stress, and having some really good food, because some of those foods are really good and some are not. But if you have a freeze dryer and you cook your own and you store your own, obviously that really doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, my favorite is the Camp Ready Mountain House. Like, their breakfast skillet meals are ridiculously good.
Yeah,
right. All their meals are great, but and we say they're expensive, but here's the thing: they're still less expensive than going out to eat.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt.
So if you're trying to figure out how am I going to get all this food storage, but you're ordering out or you're door dashing food all the time, stop that immediately. right?
Yeah.
Stop that immediately. You can replace your entire DoorDash budget in freeze-dried foods like Mountain House and have all this meal planning done for yourself with this huge variety at half the cost and still be like, I don't know what to make tonight. Grab a bag, roulette it, and figure out, oh, what am I going to eat tonight, right?
And keep in mind that those Mountain House, they're pre-cooked.
Yeah, they're fully cooked, fully ready. You just add hot water, let them sit for a while, and they're good. Or you can throw it in boiling water. There's different ways you can do it, but like I have, for part of my water storage, we have a water delivery service that brings purified water to our house every month, and we rotate the 5-gallon jugs or whatever, however big they are, 3-gallon jugs. We rotate those, and it's got a water heater in it, and it's got a water cooler in it. And I can turn off the water heater and turn on the water cooler like however I want to. But that's part of my water storage. And I'm rotating it because every month I'm getting more jugs. But the cool thing about that is it doesn't use that much energy. And I can have hot water and make all my meals with hot water right there, right? If the power is out, it's useless. But it's clean, safe water as part of my plan. So when my wife's like, hey, I want to get one of these, I was like, does that make sense for us for prepping and everything else? And I'm like, actually, long term, it kind of does.
It fits the program.
It fits within our profile of what we need and what we want. And so then we're like, do it. And I don't have to worry about rotating most of my water because it's all automatically rotated for me. And I also don't have to worry about chemicals in it. I don't have to worry about anything because it's been through a reverse osmosis process to clean it out, right? It's been treated, it's been purified, and now we have it. So look at those types of solutions. What can I add in to what I'm already doing? What subscriptions can I cancel and replace with my own, I'll air quote it, subscription of something that will fit within my prepping goals and outline of what I want to do. But you can get a lot further learning how to cook and learning how to preserve your own foods than just going after subscriptions and door dashing and everything else in the on-demand world we live. Like one of the biggest things I'm watching right now on social media is this trend of everyone's wanting to make their own sourdough starter and make their own bread. How healthy is that? It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Yep.
It's way better for you. And Rebecca's talking about it right here. She's in the thread. She's bringing it up too. Like having good quality ingredients that you have on hand and know how to cook something with it means the difference in survival. Because if you don't know how to prepare it, you don't have, like, if you've got tons of wheat and you don't know how to grind it, you don't have anything to grind it into a flour, and you don't know how to make anything out of that flour once it's there, you're toast.
Yeah. I really like I think this is the comment you were talking about, that start with foods you actually eat. Don't get beans if you don't eat them. This is from Rebecca Burton. Yeah. Slowly try recipes you can expand on what you store. I like that because one thing that I think is important is not just getting a bunch of food, but have some recipes. Like, do you know how to cook? Not everybody is a gourmet chef. Not everybody has. I'm sure that your grandma, your great grandma has a bunch of cool home recipes that you could probably say, hey, teach me how to cook some of these things. That might be a great way for you to get to know grandma, grandpa, or somebody better, is to have an opportunity where you can go in there and say, hey, teach me some of these recipes you used to make. And then you can expand your horizons. I know that my wife, when my daughters got married, one of the things my wife wanted to do was take a few minutes and give them a couple recipes from her cookbook that she got from her mom. And so that was kind of like a thing that she passed down. And that's kind of a great thing for you as well. If you're out there and wanting to know what to make, start looking up some recipes you guys like and start using those and build a store of recipes as well. A book of recipes would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely having recipes. It's funny because growing up, I just showed Mike's post. Wheat berries can be used as a breakfast cereal. Like we used to do cracked wheat every morning during the winter, and wheat stores. You can store it for like 50 years. Like it's fantastic. The wheat berries, and doesn't take much to make them. You just put it on a low simmer most of the night, and by morning it's ready. And the cool thing is like we would take a spoonful of honey and a little drip of milk, and that stuff was delicious, and it was packed with nutrients. And how long can you store honey for? It's another one of those things. It can store. I've had I think 20-year-old honey.
Wow.
It's extremely shelf stable. If it's pure organic raw honey, like it's great. A lot of the honey you buy at the stores is full of bull crap. Like, but if you can find a local guy that does honey, buy all your honey from that guy or gal. It's going to be a lot better. But it's the more you can simplify what you eat and get used to eating things that you're storing, the better it's going to be, because that's the first in, first out rule. You don't buy something like, this is the problem with freeze dry, and this is why I don't like a lot of freeze dry. People who are like, oh, well, you got to get a bunch of freeze dried food. It's like, yeah, but when are you going to eat it? Well, not until something happens. Okay. So I meet people who bought freeze dried food, a year supply, 20 years ago or 20 plus years ago. And is it still good? Or they stored it in bad conditions. It's like, okay, you just threw thousands of dollars away because it's not something you're rotating through your normal diet. So we try every 5 years to be rotating our freeze-dried foods. I want to get away from freeze-dried foods completely and just go straight canning, right? But I'm still learning those processes.
And keep in mind also with freeze-dried foods, the ones that taste better have the shorter shelf life, like the Mountain House. Some will be 2 years, 7 years. And then the ones that's claimed 20, 25 years, most likely are not going to get there. And to get to 20, 25 years, they've got to take all the oils and fats out of it, which is what gives it flavor. And then they taste terrible. So like you say, even rotate your freeze-dried ones. If you want to go cheap, I mean, they're still pretty expensive regardless. Don't have a lot of the cheap ones, because you're probably not going to eat it unless you're just starving. And in that case, obviously, when you're starving, pretty much anything tastes good, right? So ask for samples, right? Have them send you samples and to try things, because I think your eyes will get opened up very quickly to saying, yeah, this is not what I thought it would be. And maybe initially it tastes good, but you will definitely get tired of those fairly quickly. So
I think a quick tip that you can use to get maybe expand on some of those things is get a bunch of bulk rice. Like, if you can get a soup that's a dinner or a meal that's a dinner, a chicken, something or another, whatever Mountain House might have, you throw another cup of rice in there and mix it up with the ingredients. That just made that meal, for 2 to 4 people from like 4 to 6 people, potentially. Yeah. So you just expanded the opportunities by having a couple fillers like rice, because rice is a really good filler. It's something that you can kind of throw in it just mixes in with the seasoning, and it kind of sucks in that seasoning and taste and flavor. And rice does have a taste, but it's not really that strong, and you can overpower it with some of the other things. I think it's a great filler food, especially if you're going to have soups. That's another thing too, is that when you're in survival mode, goulash, soups, stews, those are all great things to have where you're just, I remember some story where they said they would take the leftovers and put it in a stew, and then they would just fill up the stew every couple of days or something, and it would last for days.
Yeah. You basically, the idea of the extended stew is you make a really good meal on Sunday, and whatever doesn't get eaten that can go into a stew goes into a stew for the next day. And then you just add a few things here and there to it, and it'll last you a whole week. Right. Like my family did that. That's part of how you lived back then. Right. But what's also cool is like, you can store rice, you can store all these other things. Being from Idaho, we were always big on potatoes.
Oh, nice.
Well, potatoes store really well. You can keep them for a year if you keep them in a cold, dry place and add light, right? But the other thing is you can take and make potato flakes. Have you guys ever made potato flakes?
Not made them, no. Bought them.
It's absolutely one of the simplest things. You boil your potatoes, you mash them, you spread them out on parchment paper, and you throw them on your dehydrator, or you can use an exterior dehydrator, but you dehydrate it. Or then you just crunch it all up, pour it in a Mylar bag, and seal it, and it's 15, 20-year shelf life.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Right? It's fantastic. And we use that stuff all the time. And it's one of those shelf-stable things that it'll get you through a pinch. If you don't have enough base in your soup, add some potato flake. Right? It's an easy, simple solution, just like add rice, add potato. Potato has its own flavor, right? there's different types of potatoes you can do, and they each have their own little texture and taste, but it also works really well when Thanksgiving rolls around. You want some mashed potatoes, pull out potato flakes.
That's cool. It's I think another thing to remember too is that another question I get about water storage is, Paris, do I need to buy this 250-gallon tank? Do I need to buy these 55-gallon drums? And I say, yes. However, after you've bought, I have 10 stacks of water bottles that they're the Walmart water bottle, the Great Value water bottles, or Costco water bottles, whatever you want to get. I have 10 or 11 of the they're 5 gallons, of water bottles. That way 11 times 5 gallons is 55 gallons. I got a 55-gallon drum basically in water bottles underneath my food storage in my food pantry. And I just rotate those water bottles. We take one upstairs, we drink from the water bottle. I buy another one, put it at the end, and we bring it right around. So I think that it's water storage too. After you got a good rotation, like Scott, either whether you use the 5-gallon things from a water cooler or you use water bottles, have that rotation first, and then upgrade to the 55-gallon drums, then upgrade to the 250-gallon, whatever, or 150-gallon tanks, because the fast water, the easy water to get to is the water you're going to drink first, and those are water bottles that you're going to want to have. And then if you in an emergency that's longer than that, then you'll need to pull from your big storage containers or your big water buckets and barrels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you want to comment on the rice and beans?
I click on, for those of you guys listening, I click on some of the different comments during our live feeds to highlight them or point them out. But like rice and beans are a complete protein, right? It's fantastic. It's always good to have tons of seasoning stockpiled, so you've got those as well. No matter what you're building, add your seasonings in the process.
Mm-hmm.
It will help stave off food fatigue, but then also learn to have a little herb garden, right? You can do that in your window. There's a lot of different things you can grow indoor in your window, as long as you got the right light exposure to have stuff on hand. The more we can get back to creating our own food process, our own harvest in our home, around our home, whether you're doing something completely aquaponic or hydroponic indoors, perhaps, or you've got a greenhouse in the backyard, a typical traditional garden, the more you can grow yourself, process yourself, and store yourself, the better your diet and your longevity is going to be, because you're increasing your quality of life. You're outside, you're grounding a lot, but you're also putting food into you that you know where it came from, and you're avoiding all the crap fillers that everybody's putting in.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the milk you go buy at the store right now, there's stuff in that milk that's not even dairy. They're watering things down. They're adding food coloring. They're adding flavor enhancers. That's just milk, right?
Yeah.
There was, and I can't remember.
There was a funny joke.
Right?
Speaking of milk, there was a funny joke that somebody said, have you noticed that ever since almond milk was invented, we've started to have all these woke liberal agendas? I was like, we should get back to whole milk. Maybe we'll just get more of the manly, anyways, it was a funny thing about almond milk.
Yeah. Go raw or go home. Like you got to get healthier options. And it's funny because, not getting too preachy here, but like the book of Ezekiel talks a lot about what you should have for your dietary needs. And it's like, it says you should have a goat so you can get goat's milk. It's the best thing for your whole household. And I'm like, what? That's one of the things I got to do some research on. I might be owning goats at some point because of that. It's more like the human milk that our bodies need. And there's just so much we could do better. And if you're a beginner prepper, it can be an easy overload. I mean, we've talked about a ton of things tonight, but it can be an easy overload to try to dive in and figure it all out at once. It can absolutely flood every aspect of your life, and you might get into a position where you just freeze. But that's where I want you to go back to the first step, which is, why are you doing this? Use that as your grounding and reorienting yourself, because you will get off track, and you might, like I've been, you might look at something and be like, oh, I really want that. I need to get that. That's vital for my preps. And then never use it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
make sure you put those as always your last to get things that you're like, oh, if you see something that sounds too good to be true, it is. If it's an all-in-one solution, it's not. Look at what you have, use what you have, and really, really simplify everything that you're doing so that it's easy to keep going. Because you can easily get overwhelmed if you're watching all these videos on YouTube, trying to figure out which direction to go. One of the best things I can tell you to do is find a group of people that you know and trust and work with them. So if you listen to us and you like what we're saying, and specifically you like what our group is saying, join our group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. It is one of the most positive groups I've seen on Facebook about prepping, self-reliance, off-grid and homesteading, like all those things that we love and we talk about a lot. We've got people in that group that are spouting wisdom all the time, as well as our weekly lives every Wednesday at 6 Mountain Time. The chat is going gangbusters with tons of wisdom. And if you're just listening to the podcast and you're not reading those comments, you are missing out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to mention something. I know we're pushing up against our time here. It seems like new preppers kind of get wrapped up in the bug in, bug out scenario, right? They want to bug out. They want to, and we talked a lot about this. So I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but I think it's really important to consider your transportation, whether you're going to, and the first priority for probably most people is to bug in or shelter, in place, rather than just immediately say, hey, we're bugging out. And I just wanted to, give us a few minutes, because I think movement can be very important. Being able to evacuate. I mean, look at California right now with the fires, right? Be able to get out quickly, having your vehicle set up to where you can load your preps up. You have and we talk about go bags. It could be a bin. It could be a tote, right? To where you have that staged in your garage or somewhere close by in your house to where you can load that up quickly. And I think that's an important part about getting started, is if you can't take your preps with you and you've got to get out quickly, have minimal time to get out, that can be detrimental. So I think it is important to consider transportation. And, of course, I'm all about, off-roading, bugging out, that kind of stuff. And that's because that's my plan, right? That is, we will be bugging out, but we've set those plans up, and it's taken a lot of years to do that. So take the time to start slow, and then as you're able to, just consider your options, where you're at, where you live, where you want to go, and strategically relocate if necessary as part of your plans. And it is, for me, it's a lifetime pursuit, right? This is not, I talk about jumping in. Yes, I think that's important. At least that was for me. But definitely do it your own way, right?
And I think it's important to
try not to make mistakes.
It's important to go at your own pace too, because there's a lot of people in marketing, especially there's companies out there that want, of course, we want to support good companies that are providing good gear, good equipment, good food stores and things of that nature. But don't get caught up in the fear porn, and don't get caught up in the, oh my gosh, you better buy $7,000 worth of freeze dried food right now, or buy this $8,000, freeze dryer. If you have $8,000 to buy a freeze dryer and you don't have a 90-day pantry, you don't have food, you don't have grab and go bags for each person in your family, spend the money on that first. It's not, we're not saying don't get some of these fancy things, but don't get caught up in the shiny object syndrome that so often we all do. And we think, oh my gosh, in order to be prepared, I have to have a freeze dryer. Well, you know what? I don't have a freeze dryer. Shane, Scott, do you guys have freeze dryers?
Yes.
Access to.
We bought one as a family. Here's the thing.
Like we've been doing this for years, and it's, I would like to get one. It's on my list of things to get access to, but you can be very well prepared, very well set and comfortable without having a lot of these big fancy things. Now, I've spent money on fancy things that end up, I realize, dang it, I wish I would have put that money towards something else. And so I'm not saying this because I didn't do it myself. I'm saying it because I did do it myself. And I want to help you learn from those experiences so that you don't buy things. Like, another thing that's a good thing to remember is that you might buy a breakfast or lunch or dinner that you like right now, but you may not like it next year. Like I have way too many boxes of cereal that nobody eats anymore so we can't rotate them. And I'm like, and then they're like, hey, we want this new cereal now. So now I have 5 boxes of the new cereal. So I got to throw out the old ones. Hopefully they're still good. Sometimes they're still good, but the point is that you learn as you go and do what you can to be, and be prudent and wise in your prepping. And it doesn't have to be expensive.
And get your whole family involved. Like some of us, it's hard to do, but get your whole family involved wherever you can. Because letting your kids know, hey, we're going to be doing this for a little while. Instead of spending money on XYZ, we're going to spend money on this so that we'll be ready when things go sideways, right? Practice preparedness drills with them. Teach them how to evacuate the house in a fire. Teach them what they need to do if there's a fire in the kitchen. Teach them what they need to do if mom or dad has a medical emergency, how to use your phone, make sure they know the passcodes to get into your phone, or even better, have a landline that they can just pick up and dial 911, right? Have all the basic knowledge bases covered for everyone in the household, right? And let them know why you're doing these things so that they can be part of the solution. If it's a whole family concern and the whole family is working together to get it solved, you're going to have more buy-in. And if they're young, it's easier to get involved. If they're older, it's harder to get them involved. So the sooner you can get on it, the better.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in a household where we had a year supply of food. So not having a year supply of food caused me to panic. We had nothing freeze-dried. It was all our own canned foods. It was root cellar, and it was the dry pack wheat, rice, and beans and stuff that we just grab a scoop, throw it in the soup, right? Get everybody involved and get everyone knowing how to use those things where they are so that when things do go sideways, that everyone can continue to pitch in and be part of the solution instead of a new problem.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I think it's fun is if you have a pantry that you rotate. Everybody knows that in my family anyways, everybody knows, hey, you run out of something upstairs, go downstairs and get it. And I think everybody's kind of got their cool thing about that. My daughter, who got married and lives in California, when they came to visit for Thanksgiving, she's like, Dad, I want you to know that we've started our own prepping like pantry, like food,
Nice.
because we liked growing up having the second place to go to get stuff that we're out. If it's out upstairs, we can go downstairs and get it. Or if it's out in the kitchen, we can go to the storage and get it because we have it. And so we're starting to do that. She and her husband are starting to do that in their new marriage, their new family. And that was really heartwarming. And that's something that sometimes you don't know what an influence you're having on them until you get a comment like that. And you're like, oh, it did work. It did pay off. It was like a dad payday, a prepper dad payday anyways, to have her say that.
100%. Well, we got a question. I know our topic is in our hours running up, but we had a question. I thought this was a fun one. I'm going to show this. Practical Civilian dropped this in. He's like, okay, guys, what did y'all get for Christmas in the way of preps? So I'll go first because I actually have mine down here. I'm actually in test flights learning how to use this thing. I got a new drone. It's a toy prep. This is not at all where you start with your preps. This is a long way down the road type of thing. And this for me is preps because I can get a bird's eye view in 4K connected to my phone. So I can see what's going on around me better.
You can see where the zombies are.
Right. And I can look on my phone with my control, like the whole system set up so I can just connect to my phone and watch as I'm flying around and see what's going on. Is it loud? Yeah. Is it the best thing? No. But for me, it's something I've wanted for a long time. But now that a lot of my other preps are in line, I could justify spending the money on this. And I'm stoked because what's funny though is we've got three drones, 2 toy drones, and then this drone. And my kids' toy drones, honestly, my daughter is a natural. Like she took hers off and she's flying around the house. I'm like, dude, that's easy. So I'm like, let me try. And I grab the controls. I'm like, bam, right into the wall. like instantly. I'm like, huh, what? And she's like, Dad, no, you got to do it like this. And she flies around the room again. I'm like, hold on. So I try it again, and I'm like, slower into the wall, different wall. But it's awesome. This one flies a lot better than those ones do. But yeah, it's fun. Always. The other part of it is like I always try to put stuff on my list that I can also use in prepping, so it's a little easier to justify buying. And I know that's cheating, but I do that for Christmas and my birthday. I ask for stuff that is in line with my prepping goals.
I got two things that are legit prepping gear, and then one that I'm going to stretch and make it a prepping gear. I got a jump starter for my battery, for my car battery.
Nice.
And I got a green dot for my AR.
Nice.
And then I wear a shirt and tie to church every Sunday. And I have, for the last several holidays, I haven't had a holiday themed tie. So I felt like I was not prepared for that holiday. So for Christmas, I had my kids get me a holiday themed tie for several of the holidays that happen throughout the year. And I got a heart tie for Valentine's Day. I got a turkey tie for Thanksgiving, and I got a flag tie for 4th of July. So that I'm now prepared to go to church with an appropriate tie around the appropriate holiday, so I can represent. So that's what I got.
I got, and I create a small list for my kids. I put simple things on there, and I got a deluxe UCO candle. It's a candle lantern, but it's a triple candle lantern with a whole bunch of stash of candles. And so just another little simple prep to add to the shelf, just for fun, really, more than anything. And someday hopefully we'll end up using it, but we've got our bases covered. So just mostly fun stuff.
It's funny because like I always put on the list things like more socks, more underwear. Like my wife's like, really? That stuff's so boring. And I'm like, I know. Oh, this isn't Christmas, but it was a Black Friday deal, so I bought it. Okay, you guys have heard me talk about I cut my own hair, right? Mm-hmm. I've been cutting my hair for years, since I was like 10 or 11. I've been cutting my hair for a long time. For some years, it was a complete buzz cut because I didn't know what else to do, but I didn't want to have to pay for it, and I didn't want to go anywhere. And I was a cheap kid, raised by cheap parents, and self-reliant. So my dad was watching this show one night, this like infomercial, and bought a Flowbee. Do you guys remember those?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had a suck cut is the joke about it, but the Flowbee was the brand. But it's a vacuum. Hook it up to your vacuum, it sucks your hair, and then it cuts it at whatever height based on the. Dude, I bought a vacuumed dog grooming kit for myself, and it's perfect for me for prepping because now I can cut my hair in the same amount of time and have no cleanup time added to the end of it.
Like that.
Nice.
And to clean it up, I just open the bin, dump it in, and I'm done. But the other cool thing is my son, he hates getting his hair clipped. When I cut his hair, I have to use the clippers on the side. This is quieter. And he also hates, because with his fun superpower of autism, he hates when things touch his face. He hates water on his face. He also hates hair touching his face. He'll freak out. This, because it sucks as it goes, solves that problem. And I can put it on the lowest level, and it's pretty quiet. It's quieter than running a regular vacuum. It's fantastic. So nice. Highly recommend going and find one of those. It's a great prep tool. And it's the cost of it was as much as 3 haircuts at a barber. And I'm like, that's a month and a half for most people.
Yeah, that'll pay for itself.
It'll pay for itself over and over again. I was going to do a haircut today, but it's still pretty short. I might trim up the sides tomorrow. But
I obviously do my own. It's very easy to do.
But it's awesome because it's got all the same clippers a regular set of clippers has. And then for him, I don't have to go too short or too long anyways, because he likes it kind of similar to me, but fantastic. I love it. I geeked out over it.
So cool. Well,
10 out of 10 stars.
Well, thanks for being on the show with us tonight, guys, on the live, and those that are listening later. Wherever you're listening, if you feel like hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, or giving us a 5-star review, we'd love it. I think YouTube is going to be coming up with some way where YouTube can you can promote, or you can give some kind of something or another. So if you feel comfortable doing that, go for it. Otherwise, whatever podcast you're listening on, give us a 5-star review and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us a message at on our Facebook group. And we've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. If you wanted to know where to start and how to prioritize your preps, hopefully you got what you were looking for by listening to this episode. So we'll see you on the next one. Have a great week and stay prepared.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Bye, guys.